when you get on game day and you've put in all that work during the week, and you're seeing these young men go out there and play their butts off and sacrifice their bodies and play this game where every collision is like a car accident, and you see them make a play that can only help their future, you can't help but let out joy. I mean, I don't know how it's hard for me. I can't speak for anyone else. It's hard for me not to express that outwardly.
Welcome to the Huddle Flow podcast presented by Intuit, the proud makers of TurboTax, QuickBooks, and Mint. I'm Steve White, joined by my dude Jim Trotter. We are 2/3 of the Howard University mob. The other third, Thomas Warren, our producer, and the rest of the crew. They're behind the scenes on the ones and the twos. And Jim, Robert Saleh, he's going to be joining us a little bit later. And I don't know about you, but just that little soundbite we played got me a little jacked up, like how Saleh gets on the sidelines.
I'm telling you, Steve, he's such an impressive guy, and I love the emotion that he brings to the sideline. And the one thing we know about Robert, based on his years in this league thus far, is that he is going to be authentic. So if he is excited during a play, he is going to express that excitement on the sideline. He's not going to be one of these cookie-cutter coaches. So I'm eager to see him on the sideline and eager to see what he can do with the Jets.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to hear a lot about him, his plans for the Jets, quarterback Sam Darnold, and some other things a little bit later on. But Jim, the big news is the Houston Texans. And the big news should have been the fact that they hired David Culley, that they are the last team to hire their head coach this offseason. But that was trumped times 10 by the fact that quarterback Deshaun Watson, the official trade request to get him out of H-Town, that news leaked, it's been made. And just kind of your thoughts about all of this, because David Culley seems to be walking into a situation that right now could not be more tumultuous.
No question. Look, they may be the last team that hired a head coach, but when it comes to dysfunction in the league, they rank number one among all the 32 teams. This whole process has been just an embarrassment for the Texas organization. Let's be frank here. Starting with the fact that Deshaun Watson expressed his unhappiness about not even being consulted on this process when they had told him that they would run some things by him. So that started it off. Then the fact that you have Deshaun saying he wanted Eric Bieniemy to be interviewed, and they chose not to interview Eric Bieniemy, and then come back after the fact, after the initial window had closed, and say, well, yeah, now we're going to put in a request to interview Eric Bieniemy. And look, I could go through all the things going on with this organization right now behind the scenes, but it would take the entire show. But let's just say right now, this organization, in terms of dysfunction, in terms of a deteriorating culture, all of those things, there's a lot of work that has to be done, and David Culley has his work cut out for him.
Hey, Jim, from the people we talked to, it wouldn't take the entire show to talk about the dysfunction. It would take like the entire 5 shows. But one thing I want to reset you on this. You said you think the fact that everything started with the fact that they said, hey, Deshaun, we want your input, and then they ignored him. To me, it seems like it started years ago. Remember, Cal McNair is the new owner. He's the son of previous owner Bob McNair. When Bob McNair came out with the comment a couple of years ago, hey, we can't let the inmates run the prison, offensive tackle Dwayne Brown was like, no, that doesn't fly. There were team meetings where they had discussions where Bob McNair expressed his kind of, I don't know, disappointment that Barack Obama had been elected, and the players were like, this isn't happening. It seems like the culture wasn't the only thing that was inherited by, that the team wasn't the only thing inherited by Cal McNair from his father. Seems the culture was also, and when you see Dwayne Brown get traded, and when you see D-Hop get traded, those are 2 of the best players this organization has had over the past 7 or 8 years, and now Deshaun Watson wants out. To me, this seems like it goes back a lot further than just what we've seen over the past month or so.
Oh, it's no question, Steve. Look, ownership establishes culture within an organization. As they always say, a fish rots from the head down. And so all of the issues that you are seeing now stem from a lack of leadership up top. And the fact that Cal McNair has now allowed Jack Easterby to have so much influence over this organization is a problem, because he's not trusted by players in that organization. So, as I look at it, the fact that they even went out and interviewed Josh McCown for the head coaching job You know, a guy who a year ago was still playing, has no coaching experience, no head coaching experience, obviously. And you have all of these candidates, black and non-black, who have paid their dues, who have put in the time over the years to try and do everything that they were told you have to do to climb that professional ladder. And to have a guy, you know, just jump to the front of the line on that, that creates a bad culture within an organization. And look, the fact that Josh McCown is going to be on this coaching staff as an assistant, it raises questions about whether or not David Culley is simply a placeholder until Josh McCown is ready to take over. And that's a legitimate concern among those. But look, I had one member of this staff tell me last night, everyone knows what they got into by signing on with the Texans. So from a coaching standpoint, whether it's David Culley, whether it's Tim Kelly or anyone else, they know what they're getting into. And so we should not feel bad for them at all.
No, absolutely. I mean, like I said, they know what they're getting into, Jim. The old saying, there's one of 32, and then the staff for the one of 32. But now let's get to Deshaun Watson. I mean, he wants to be traded. You know teams are already calling. They'd be idiotic if they didn't. The general managers and whatnot would not be doing their services if they didn't make a call to try to get him. But is he gone? Is he going to Miami or the Jets? In fact, you know, that's a question we're going to talk to Robert Saleh about. But is he gone, or do you think he's back in Houston?
Look, I think he's back in Houston. Now, we know general manager Nick Caserio came out and said that they have no intentions of trading the player. But I think you could see that even before Caserio made that announcement from this standpoint, Steve. Everything they have done with this coaching staff was done with the mindset of Deshaun being there. And why do I say that? Because number one, any of the candidates that they talked to for the head coaching position, they pretty much let it be known that they wanted Tim Kelly to return as the offensive coordinator. Why? Because they know that as upset as Deshaun is, even if he were to skip the entire offseason, even if he were to skip training camp, if he showed up week one of the season, they wanted to have an offense in place that Deshaun was comfortable with, that he knew the verbiage, and he was comfortable with the play caller. That's Tim Kelly, who he knows, obviously, from a year ago. So from my standpoint, as I look at it, what I see is that the Texans all along have had the notion or the idea that they were not going to move Deshaun Watson. Now, it never hurts to listen, and there are teams that are going to call without question, because you and I have both talked to teams who have wondered aloud, what would it take to get him out of Houston? But I do not believe he's going to be moved. And no matter how unhappy the player is, at the end of the day, the team controls everything. The team controls his rights. And we hear all the time about players being upset with teams, saying they're never going to play for a team again, whether they've been franchise tagged or whether they're upset about something that goes on. And at the end of the day, if teams are smart from a business standpoint, they will test that player's conviction to see just how serious he is. And if he wants to miss games and miss paychecks, that's how you test his conviction.
That's the ultimate game of chicken. That's the final straw. If a player is willing to do a Lev Bell and sit out a season and miss money that he's never going to recoup, endorsement-wise, whatever, if you got $30 million you're willing to forsake, you're never going to recoup that, regardless of how much bread you make at some point in your career. So again, that's the ultimate stare down. We'll see exactly what happens. But Jim, I'm with you on that. I think Deshaun ends up back in Houston. Now, what can they put around him? Their first and second round draft picks are with the Dolphins. They've got no cap space. So this is a team that, heck, if David Culley is able to win 7 games next year, he's he's the coach of the year, man. We've seen situations like this before. And this is why I'm hoping for David Culley's sake. Because, Jim, you talked about people who've put in the time, done it the right way, established network, established credibility. David Culley has, even though he wasn't a name that was really on the radar. I think back to the Atlanta Falcons after the 2007 season, after the Michael Vick dogfighting investigation. I covered that team. It was scorched earth down there. No one thought the Falcons could recover for 5 years. What do? They hired Thomas Dimitroff and Mike Smith, a head coach that was on nobody's radar. It was a linebackers coach with the Jaguars. Nobody knew Thomas Dimitroff because he was like a college scout for the Patriots who lived in Boulder, Colorado. They formed a partnership, and they got to the playoffs quickly. However, they had a first-round draft pick to get Matt Ryan, and they had cap space to get Michael Turner and a lot of other players, something the Texans don't have. All right, Jim, let's go ahead and move forward, because coming up after the break, we're going to talk to Jets coach Robert Saleh, who, by the way, was someone else who the Houston Texans did an interview for their head coaching job. All right, Jim, now we're joined by someone we know well, someone we're hoping is about to have a ton of success up there with the New York Jets, Robert Saleh. Robert, good seeing you, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Congrats, Coach.
Thank you very much. It's surreal, but it's been awesome so far.
So far, so you're 2 weeks. You're 2 weeks on the job, Robert. What has that been like? Because we had Tony Dungy on a couple weeks ago, and he was saying like his first couple weeks on the job, he's trying to assemble a staff. He's got people asking what type of hotels and stuff do you want to stay in. He's like, man, let me put these pieces in place first.
No, there's so we're putting the staff together. We're trying to meet with Joe and his staff, and I think Coach Kubiak said it best. Just it'll get done. Just take small bites. If you try to get it all done in one day, it's not gonna. You'll realize you're gonna get overwhelmed, and so we've been just taking one day at a time, chopping off one block at a time, and or chopping down one tree at a time. But there's a lot of things happening in these first couple of weeks when you're trying to still assemble a staff and trying to still take a look at the tape and see what you've got with regards to players and personnel and all that. So there's a lot of moving parts.
Coach, how do you divide your day when you're dealing with that in terms of putting together a staff, in terms of evaluating your personnel? Can you lay it out for us?
Yeah. First and foremost, the two coordinators that we have here with Mike LaFleur and Jeff Ulbrich are two guys I trust immensely. The assistant coaches, obviously, they're doing a really good job. They're very well connected to the schemes that we're trying to implement, and so they know exactly what we're looking for. They know the language. They know how things work. And so there's a trust factor there with regards to how they look at stuff. As for myself, just taking time where I can in terms of making the phone calls I need to make, making sure I'm communicating with Joe and his staff, and making sure that I'm still staying connected to our staff, to the football staff, and then being able to sit back and watch a couple of hours worth of film. So it is a nonstop day. It's funny. My wife actually texted me at 6 o'clock this morning. She was like, "What do you have to do in the office that you need to be there at 6 o'clock in the morning in the off season?" And I was like, "A lot." So it starts early, ends late.
She's not new to the game. She's got to know it's 24/7, man.
You know what? She's new to this part of it, so she's just curious. You know, it's more of a question. She knows that we work many hours, but she was just curious in this role. She was just, you know, I feel like she's been here since we flew out here. She's been looking for a home, so she's you know, she's kind of learning at the same rate. She was just curious. So good conversation. She hasn't seen me in a couple of days, so it's I guess she was trying to have conversation.
Yeah.
Hey, no. Hey, Jim, here's the deal, though. Robert, as married men, we know that she just wants to make sure you're away so she can pick the house that she wants without any of your input.
You know what? Oh, man, I have no idea what house is going to get picked out, but I know it's going to be something beautiful. So it's I'm just going to close my eyes and just say, write the check. Just take it. So
Wives love to hear those words, man.
she deserves everything, and I mean that sincerely. I mean, she can have whatever the heck she wants. So,
You know,
Good
Robert,
man.
there'll be a lot of coaches, aspiring head coaches, watching this interview, and I wonder if you could take them inside an interview process in terms of. I know you've had a couple of years of interviewing and whatnot. But what is it about the process that maybe you didn't know that once you get in it, you can advise these guys on of what to expect or how to better prepare for these opportunities?
for sure, you know, there's for me, it was about being myself and making sure that I wasn't trying to play up to what I knew what the expectations were with regards to fan experience, feedback, perception. You go into these things knowing what each organization is ideally looking for, but you just stay connected to yourself and you lay out your plan. You lay out your plan with confidence. Have a plan. That's the biggest thing, and understand that, you know, the people doing the interviewing, they're very experienced in terms of building an empire, if you will. I mean, these owners own these teams because they've been able to build something special, and they've had plans to do it, and it didn't just happen by luck. And so just having the plan, being yourself, having conviction in what you're talking about, and just being very clear and concise. And you know, whether it's a match or not is obviously up to the people you're speaking with, but those are the two biggest things: is having a great plan and being yourself.
Was there ever a moment you were kind of caught off guard where you said, that was something I didn't prepare for or couldn't prepare for?
You know, each interview process is a little bit different. So, you know, you go through and, you know, some teams are very intimate in terms of having more of a family atmosphere with regards to having more people involved. Some teams are, most teams have a pretty standard way of doing it. And then, you know, some teams just come right at you and ask you some brutally honest questions, and where it feels like you're bobbing and weaving. And so there's, you know, just be prepared for everything. But that's why I say that's just be yourself, have conviction in who you are, believe that there's a reason why you're sitting in that chair, and there's a reason why they're asking you questions. It's because you're the best at what you do, and have connection to yourself, and be yourself, and have confidence that no matter what they do throw at you, you'll be able to bob and weave and answer the questions that you need to while laying out your plan and revealing who you are without stumbling, because you're connected. Hopefully I'm making sense. But I just believe that when you're fully connected to yourself and you know who you are, and you're not trying to be someone just to fit what the mold is that they're trying to capture, it's much easier to be authentic and true because you're just letting them know who you are. You're not afraid of what they might think.
Robert, as a defensive coordinator, I mean, how was it? Because we know all these teams, it seems like they want the hot offensive guy. How much did you have to say, hey, look, I know offense. First off, I played offense in college. I coach against offense. You know, I coach against offenses. I know what to see. Was there a level of convincing that you said you could just tell the teams, like, don't worry about this. This part's going to be fine?
You know, I don't know if there was convincing, but there was definitely a plan for that side of the ball. I've been fortunate, right? I've since I got into the NFL, I think 10 or more seasons have been with Kyle Shanahan and that Shanahan system, and Gary Kubiak, and so I have an intimate connection to that system. So having a plan for that side of the ball and laying out that plan was obviously important to a lot of the owners, especially coming from the defensive side. But So I don't know if there was convincing as much as it was just kind of releasing the plan and just giving them an idea of how I saw things, who I thought would be able to run install the scheme as to the best of their ability and the vision that we wanted. And like I said, I think it was pretty easy from that regard to show that there's still going to be a connection to the offensive side of the ball, despite myself being a defensive mind.
You know, Robert, 2 years ago, you guys in San Francisco, when you were in San Francisco, were loaded defensively. That goes without saying. You go to a Super Bowl and whatnot. You come back last season, you lose to Forrest Buckner. Bosa goes down early. You've got 14 different starting combos in the secondary. I would argue that that was your best coaching job in your 4 years in San Francisco. Would you agree with that? And sort of what did you learn about yourself or previous experience that allowed you to have success with that unit despite all the injuries?
You know, there's when the greatest thing about having continuity is that the players grow with you as a football coach. You grow together. And so when we came in, you install the scheme. We had a small bump from what we took over the second year. Obviously, it was met with some resistance, but there was still another bump with regards to what we were able to accomplish. But as everybody was kind of connecting to the scheme and really understanding what we were trying to get accomplished on a play-in and play-out basis, we were able to inject it with those pass rushers. And we got we brought Chris Kasarik in, and he really took our D-line to another level, and we were able to really mold the back end. Fred Warner started coming to his own, and because of it, we had a record-setting defense for a majority of that year before we started having injuries during the Super Bowl season. Fast forward to last year, a lot of credit with the coaching staff, the players, and understanding. Like, I always tell people that when there's an injury, I want somebody to look at that backup and tell him that he's not a starter in this league. I promise you he'll look at you cross-eyed, because every player in this league believes that they're starting caliber players. It's just a matter of giving them the opportunity to go do it. And because of the continuity and the years and reps and time that we've all invested in one another with regards to the system, those guys were able to step in and still play at a very high level. And there's a lot of moving parts to that. There's the continuity and scheme. There's the assistant coaches who did a great job preparing guys constantly. And then, of course, the players to constantly stay connected and understanding that even though they were backups, there were no wasted reps. It's not like we're reinventing the wheel every week. So to overcome all those injuries, we were able to step right in and play off one another and still keep that level of standard that we always talked about.
Robert, so you are with the Jets right now. And I think, of course, the big question for Jets fans and around the league is Sam Darnold. I mean, is he your guy? And when you came in to interview with the Jets, were you mandated? Did they tell you, hey, Sam Darnold's going to be here? Or how is that going to work?
So, it's the same thing that we've been talking about. We just got here. We're just starting to watch all this tape, watch the personnel that's here, quarterback, receiver, O-line, D-line, linebackers, DBs. So you're going through that entire process. What I can tell you about Sam is that he is an unbelievable talent. There's a reason why he was the third overall pick. It's very clear. Just watch the tape. I get production aside, just watch the player. He's got tremendous mobility. He's got arm talent. He's fearless. He's smart. He's quick. He's a good, precise decision maker. He's loved in the locker room. People adore him around this building. So there's a reason why he's the third overall pick, and let's be real, he's 23 years old, so he hasn't even scratched the surface of life yet. So there's a lot to Sam, but there's so many discussions that need to be had and so many moving parts with regards to the rest of the roster and the whole entire building, the draft, free agency, all of it, to give an answer on where we are at that point. There's just, with Joe and his staff, there's just a lot of discussions that have to be had. But at the same time, with Sam, I'm not hiding behind a veil or anything. The kid's very, very talented. And it shows on tape when you really just watch it. Results aside, you just have to watch his tape to really see how talented the young man is.
So with those traits, does he fit into that Shanahan-Kubiak system that you were just talking about?
Oh, yeah. No, they do. It's, just the arm talent. If you look at it, he would instantly become the most mobile quarterback that the system's really ever had. I mean, it's aside from maybe Jake Plummer back in the day, or is it Jake Plummer when he was back with Denver?
Yep. It was Jake. Yep.
Yeah. So just from a mobility standpoint, to be able to create off schedule the way he does, he'd probably be one of the better ones that the system's ever had. A lot of the, traditionally you see Aaron Rodgers, you see who's having a renaissance, Matt Ryan's best years, even Jimmy at San Francisco, Jared Goff, Tannehill. They're not they fit into a mold, but Sam's got the ability to create off schedule. Again, his arm talent on the run is up there with the best of them, and so he's got a tremendous talent to him, and he would definitely fit because of his ability to process information and get the ball in and out of his hands in a timely manner, and that at the velocity and the accuracy at which he's able to do it.
Robert, we used to see young quarterbacks sit the bench for a year or two, and now they come in and they play right away. In your mind, is that a positive, or is it unique to each individual?
Well, it depends. It is unique to each individual. There's two ways to look at it. You can say, all right, we're gonna draft a rookie and he's gonna grow with the roster, or you can look at it the way Seattle did, where the roster was already built and then Russell came in and the roster was able to carry Russell until he was comfortable to take the team over. And so there's two ways to look at it, and it depends on where you are, depends on the talent of quarterback that's available and whether or not it's time to go grab that guy. There's more than just, oh, here's a great quarterback. It's, all right, can he handle the roster at its state versus, hey, this roster is really, really strong and it can handle his growing pains because of how strong the rest of the roster is. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it, and it's to answer your question, unique to each individual and each scenario that gets created.
If we can, go ahead, Steve.
Oh, go ahead, Jim. Now, real quick, there's a quarterback who's been linked to you guys. He's not on your roster right now, but you guys do have the number 2 overall pick, the 23 overall pick. I think it's 6 of the first 98. So he's a mobile guy. He's got arm talent. Put up some of the best numbers in the NFL this year. Would you guys, in discussing some of this, be open to possibly exploring scenarios to say, bring in a quarterback from another team who's thrown to guys like DeAndre Hopkins and guys like that?
We'll never talk about a player from another team. That's first and foremost. But it goes back to this whole.
Robert.
When we talk about, in all seriousness, though, but when you do talk about, we talk about all gas, no break, right? And we talk about it being a way of life and doing things to the best of your ability at all hours of the day, finding a way to go to bed better than when you woke up. Whether you're a coach, whether you're in ticketing, whether you're in the meal room, whether you're in the equipment room, weight room, player, it doesn't matter. We're always trying to find ways to get better. And so all those discussions, there's a lot of time. There's a lot of time before April to have a million different discussions, and wherever those discussions lead are where we're going to go in terms of making the best decision to get our organization better.
He's a head coach already, Jim. He's a head coach already, man. Good answer.
No, he's been well trained.
Well, coming up next, Robert Saleh. He will discuss the diversity issue among NFL head coaches. He is one of 2 that was hired this cycle. And we're going to find out if Saleh is going to continue to be the Incredible Hulk on the sideline.
I wanted to transition for a second into this whole coaching, this hiring process in the NFL. And we all know that right now there are only 4 diverse head coaches in the NFL. And I'm going to put you on the spot here, but I think you handle yourself well enough. You'll bob and weave to be able to handle it, as you said. But why is the NFL having such a hard time hiring capable, qualified, diverse head coaching candidates?
You know what? I know the result's not what everyone's looking for. That's clear. But what I do know, and you just see it, the league office, the owners, it is important. They're implementing as many rules as possible. They're bringing in all these different incentives. They're creating ways to get more minorities face time with owners. And I would imagine that after this year, there's going to be more rules. There's going to be more areas where we can create more face time. And that's the whole thing, is getting FaceTime, good quality FaceTime, where those things can happen, to where we get it to where we want. And, there's why the result's not happening. I don't have that answer, but I do know that the league is relentlessly working to try to get it right. And I do know that just talking through these interviews and going and having different conversations with these owners, and I forget how many interviews I did, but each one of them, it was at the forefront of their mind. It was very important, the social justice, having those conversations and going through all those different things. And so I know it's important to them. You can see that it's important to the league office, and there's no doubt that eventually it's going to get right. It's maybe it's not happening as fast as everybody wants, but you can just see that people are putting in the work.
Well, Robert, what's interesting to me is, like, Steve and I focus on this a lot in terms of trying to level this playing field and make sure that people who are qualified and capable get opportunities. And people say to us all the time, why do you guys talk about race so much? And we say, we would rather not talk about race. But the reality is these coaches can't speak up for fear of retribution. And so could you, as a diverse coach, speak to maybe these conversations you have with your colleagues about the frustrations that they feel, maybe the anger that they feel, or even in sometimes conversations I have, the hopelessness that they feel about this process, knowing that even a guy like an Eric Bieniemy, whose resume seems to say he's more than qualified and has earned an opportunity but can't get it, looks like he's going to be shut out in this process. Can you speak to these fans out here or to the public and say what these coaches are feeling and what those conversations are like?
That's a good question. I can imagine the frustration. We all can. The biggest thing is to just remain confident and faithful and have faith in what's unseen. So I've always believed that there's 2 types of people. There are those who believe and there are those who have faith. People who believe need to see things happen before it happens. People who have faith know it's going to happen. And you look at guys like EB, he's going to be a head coach. He's too talented. There's no freaking way that he won't be. And maybe it's not this year, but it's going to happen. And there's going to be movement. They're starting to move. Minorities are starting to move up in terms of position coaching jobs, coordinator jobs, all that stuff, and even at the quality control level. So very confident that that's going to happen. I get that it's frustrating, but you can't ever let your frustration boil over to negativity. You got to have a positive mindset and still really have appreciation, because at the end of the day, we're still very blessed to be where we are. And at the same time, just continue to do your job, be the best that you can possibly be, and just know that eventually your talent will rise to the top. And that's, the cream will always rise to the top, and Eric being one of them.
I have one more on this, and this may be the toughest one. We've got 4 diverse head coaches now, but when we look at their staffs, coordinator positions, there are no minorities there. And so the question becomes, if we won't look out for our own, how can we expect someone else to look out for us? And I know that's a tough question, but I did want to put it to you.
No, absolutely, because when you get the biggest thing, when you talk pipeline, all right, when you talk pipeline and you talk about things at the quality control level, the most intimate relationship that's made between coordinator and coach is at the quality control level. That's where that relationship happens. And to be able to get those quality controls in position to have those relationships, they're the ones who talk with the head coach and the quality and the coordinators the most. And so when you look at these guys who are ascending pretty quick, I'll use D'Amico Ryans at San Francisco. He came in as our quality control. He and I had a tremendous relationship. He bumps to linebackers coach. Our relationship gets even stronger. His relationship with the head coach gets even stronger. And I get this opportunity here, which is a blessing, and then D'Amico slides right in. And so from a level of trust and a level of pipeline, if you talk pipeline and communication, the quality control of it might take 2 or 3 years. It might to really get to where we want to go, but that quality control level, getting minorities into those spots so they can build that intimate relationship with their coordinator, with the head coach, that's where the rapid growth happens, and where you're able to, from the ground up, build a resume with regards to networking, the foundation, all of that stuff. And so when you look at for us here, we're trying to do that here with the quality controls that we've hired here, and trying to give them opportunities to build those relationships so they can continue to grow and go up the pipeline in a way that we know that they can step right in and build a system.
Robert, it's interesting that you say that, because Doug Williams and Shaq Harris and guys like that who've really been trying to push the league and push teams have said the quality control, because that's usually where the nepotism is, right? The sons of the coaches or the uncles or whatever, the nephews, that's usually the jobs they get. Next thing you know, they're up in the pipeline and they're the play callers. You were at the Quarterback Coaching Summit in 2020. It was virtual, but you saw the diverse talent that was there. I mean, from guys who've gotten jobs or coordinator positions to whatever. What about experiencing that and just seeing the Garrick McGee's of the world and guys like that who are super smart and now can network to get in positions like that or establish relationships as to where say, okay, hey, I might lose a QB coach in a year. I want to have this guy in that pipeline that you're talking about.
You're right. So that goes back to what I'm talking about with regards to relationship and trust. And so there are a million. That QB summit was phenomenal in terms of the amount of men and diverse candidates that were readily available. Garrick McGee, now notwithstanding, he's phenomenal. But when you're coming in as a new staff and you're trying to put together pieces, there is slightly a comfort level because of the relationships, one, that were built, two, the understanding of how you operate as an individual, three, the scheme, understanding the scheme part of it. And so there's a seamlessness because you don't have much time to get it going. Now, as you go, and people start moving, that's why I'm getting back to this quality control spot in terms of building those relationships. So when people do get promoted and you do have success, they're the ones sliding in. They're the ones moving up to that next level of from a coaching standpoint. And then you're able to start pulling in. Once you've established, you can start pulling in from the outside to allow your organization to grow in a different way. But from an initial get, and just from a relationship standpoint, that quality control, and you already hit it, Steve, but that quality control, I don't think people give enough credit to how important it is with regards to just the overall relationship that's built in terms of creating that fast track pipeline up to the position that we all desire.
Coach,
Hey, Robert,
go ahead, Steve.
Go ahead, Jim. I just want to ask you if with the Jets, we know the struggles that they've had the past couple of years. What is the process now in building? Because you went through it with the Niners, right? Remember those first 2 years? You talked. It was a slow burn, and then there was the spike. Is that kind of the timeline, or at least the process you're trying to establish there, to slowly build credibility, slowly build the culture, and then boom?
Well, you never know when it's going to explode. Next year, 2 years, 3 years from now. But what I do know, just from past experience. And just my opinion. But when you look at Houston with Gary Kubiak and Rick Smith and the success they were able to build and a couple of really good playoff runs, you go to Seattle with Snyder and Pete and what they were able to build, and then obviously San Francisco with Kyle and John. The common denominator in all those buildings was the collaborative communicating effort. There's the collaborative effort between general manager and his staff, head coach and his staff, and just the vision of what we were trying to accomplish on both sides, on all three sides of the ball, and obviously with regards to scheme and vision for what type of players that we coveted. And so just having that constant communication is what really created that culture and how those teams were able to flip by year 3, if you will. And so, to give you a timeline, I don't know what that timeline is, but going through this interview process, having those conversations with Christopher and now Woody, and then Joe and Jaime, there's no doubt that this is a very collaborative mindset. There's no doubt that they were looking for a partner in their head coaching search. That's how it felt. That was the communication, and everything through these first 2 weeks are proving that. And there's no reason to think that it would be anything else. And so one thing I will tell you is it's the communication and the collaborative effort that, in my opinion, is needed to build a strong winner is definitely happening here. And to give you time, I don't know, but I do have a tremendous amount of confidence in the fact that we'll win championships here.
Robert, we hear so much the word culture. How do you define it as it relates to a football team?
So culture, everyone's culture. I'm with you. You hear that word. The best coach teams are the teams that coach themselves. And so always respecting the name on the front of the jersey first. And what type of person are you trying to bring in? Not just player-wise, but on your staff, in the business side, on the scouting side. Like, what does this person represent when you look at the name on the front of the jersey? And bringing those people in constantly, because you trust that at the very least, you're going to have a character that's going to overachieve based on their talent level at all levels. And I'm not just, like I said, not just talking about players. And so if you bring in enough of these people that represent the name on the front of the jersey, you trust that the culture will eventually take over, because they'll start policing it themselves. And when they start taking that ownership in the organization and they start believing that they actually have, and they do, when they understand that they are every part of what the result is on the football field as anyone else, and they feel that ownership and they feel that investment and all of that stuff gets reciprocated, it becomes very personal. So I believe that culture is very personal. I think culture is about investment. And I think that when everybody is invested in one another, you create that mindset of that personal atmosphere where people just want to do more for one another. And then it goes back to when that starts happening, the team starts coaching itself.
One of the things you said during your press conference that really stuck with me was sort of following your passion. And the backstory is that, you played in Northern Michigan, you go into the financial sector. Your brother is actually in one of the towers during, or was working down in Lower Manhattan during 9/11. There's that fear that he was in one of the buildings. Thankfully, he was not. And after that, you decided to get out of the financial sector and follow your heart and go into football. And seeing now how much you love this game, why not go into it right away, when you came out of college, as opposed to going into the financial sector?
Yeah. So my brother was in the second tower, 61st floor, and managed to get out. But that is a good question. It's that young, youthful, wanting money for the first time in your life, opportunity to get into the world of making money and owning your own car and owning your own place and kind of being independent and free of your parents finally. And so that was the initial burst, to do what everyone else does when they finish college, and that's go into the business world, make money, move out of your parents' house, and move on. And thankfully for myself, I had such a great support system with my mom and my dad, my brothers and sisters. I was able to take a risk on myself and make $650 a month, and try to make ends meet while I pursued my passion.
To me, that's so strong. I think because everyone has a purpose in life, and I don't know that you can fully be happy if you're not following whatever you feel that purpose is. So it comes through in what you're doing now, and so I think it's a positive lesson and a powerful message for young people out there as well.
No, absolutely. When you love what you do, it'll love you back, and that goes with everything. If you you love your wife, she'll love you back. If you love your kids, they'll love you back. And so if you do things with love, it'll love you back. And so that's always, always, if you don't love what you're doing, I promise it's going to be a negative aspect in your life. So do what you love and love what you do, and you'll have the enthusiasm and passion to do it. So.
Right on. Hey, so Robert, let's have a little fun here. So, a lot of the public has seen you, with when your defense makes big plays, rah, you're giving it up like this on the sidelines. Can you do that as an HC now, or do you have to be like the stoic, dude right there? Like, I can't show that anymore because I'm the guy in control.
I'm not going to lie to you. There's no way I'm not going to have enthusiasm on the sideline. Now, I am very aware of what I'm as a coordinator, I know that I don't have to worry about fourth down. I don't have to worry about timeouts or red flags or anything like that. So I know I'm going to have to quickly transfer. But one thing I do know is I can control my emotions. And I will show emotion on the sideline, but it's not going to be I know I'll be able to get myself back quickly to make sure that I'm always making the best decision for the team and keeping myself engaged. So it's hard. I mean, when you get on game day and you've put in all that work during the week, and you're seeing these young men go out there and play their butts off and sacrifice their bodies and play this game where every collision is like a car accident, and you see them make a play that can only help their future, you can't help but let out joy. I mean, I don't know how it's hard for me. I can't speak for anyone else. It's hard for me not to express that outwardly. And so I know that's still going to come out, but like I said, I'm fully aware of all the different responsibilities that a head coach might have. So I'll have to get pulled back in pretty quickly. So I'll be good.
Coach, be authentic. I think you said it earlier. Be yourself. Be authentic.
No doubt. No doubt.
Hey, Rob, I'm curious.
So
real quick, you're taking over the Jets as one of those special franchises, I think, in the NFL, going back historically and whatnot. Have you felt that in your short time now as head coach already, whether through anything you've heard from the fan base or anyone in the organization? That it's crying out. I don't have to tell you, it's so hungry for success. Has there been something that reminded you of just what you've stepped into there in that franchise?
The media obligation already, but the fan base is so passionate. So I went to Michigan State, got my master's from there, have a strong connection to Michigan State. Go Green, right? And when you look at Michigan State fan base versus Michigan fan base, it's very similar to what you see in New York. If you think about it, there's Michigan's more. We always make fun of Michigan for kind of being more the uppity ups, sit in your hands, where the Spartan fans are a little bit more rambunctious, a little bit more passionate, a little more they're louder. Like we always say that a loaded stadium in East Lansing is a hell of a lot louder than a loaded stadium at the Big House. But at the same time, so when you get here, you just feel that when we've played the Jets in the past versus, the Giants, no disrespect to them, they're absolutely a phenomenal franchise. But the Jets fan base is a lot more, feels more invested, I should say. They feel more invested in the way they are just so passionate about their team. And so to be a part of this is like, it's like home for me. I mean, it's what I feel like I've always been a part of everywhere I've been with regards for my high school and the passion that they have, the people in the community have for that school, college and all that stuff. So excited to be a part of this thing and excited to get this thing moving in the right direction.
Jim, don't you love how he says a loaded fan base in Lansing and a loaded fan base in Ann Arbor? I think those college students' definition of loaded might be a little bit different than ours right now.
Oh, man.
Hey, so Robert, okay, so here's one. 'Cause I remember we spoke, I think it was before you guys had a playoff game against New Orleans a couple years ago, and you're running the steps you do pregame. You had the playlist in. At that time, you had like a Latin playlist, right? You were getting like, some salsa going in the blood before you were getting there. Do you have a consistent playlist when you do that? Because I know on my workout list, I've got about 180 songs, and it shuffles, but I know the songs that are on there. Do you have a consistent, or do you mix it up?
I do have one that I feel like I've had. I got to update it. Maybe I'll get it updated this time around. But I've been doing, I'll mix in some 80s music. I've got my salsa music. I mix it up, but there's one that I always go back to that's just kind of eclectic in that it hits almost every genre that you can possibly imagine. So.
All right, we got that. All right, now Jim, here's the one thing. So I did a piece last year on Robert before the Super Bowl, and Kyle Shanahan just could not get off this van Robert had specially built. Okay, so Robert's got six. He's got 6 kids. Number 7 is on the way. All right, and you were telling us off air that it is en route to Florham Park, but it's like a Batmobile, right?
Oh yeah, it's this big black van. My wife feels like it. People look at her like she's a creepy stalker, and but I love it. Kids love it. They all got their own plush seat back there, and a big old TV. They're lucky. I mean, I'm trying not to spoil my kids too much. I'm trying to get them to kind of go the way we did when we were younger, where we had to go the hard way and walk to school and ride our bike to the park to play baseball or whatever it was. But it's a different world, man.
It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. We always spoil our kids because we want them to have more than what we have. And then, I'll speak personally. Then you look back on it after they're grown and you say, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, because my dad looks at us and say, man, you guys were spoiled. I'm like, I mean, I had cardboard boxes to play with. What are you talking about? But I look back at it, and there was 10 kids in a 1,500 square foot house when he was younger, and so living in a basement practically. So I recognize that. And you're right, Jim. You do things for your children, and hopefully your children can pick up where you left off and do more for their children, and so on and so forth. And eventually, you hope they move up they continue to build the family.
Absolutely.
But Robert, tell me this: what are the freaking tussles like with 6 kids in the house? I mean, do they rumble? Are they like real rambunctious? Are they like solid kids?
Oh yeah, they're definitely solid kids. You see, the funniest one is our 3-year-old. He doesn't realize yet that there's a no hit rule on our 3-year-old Mikey. So no one's allowed to touch him. So he just goes around hitting everybody, beating up on everyone, and they all understand the rules. Like, no one's allowed to hit Mikey yet. But that halo is about to be removed because he's about to turn 4, and at 4 he's free game. So he has no idea what's about to happen to him. but the other 3, the 3 oldest boys, they get after each other, but it's all in good fun. I always tell them, keep it below the neck, above the waist. You guys have fun, but the one thing they do understand is they take care of each other to the fullest, and especially the 2 little girls. They got her back, and as long as they understand that, I don't care what they do to one another, because as long as they got each other's back, they'll be all right.
Always coaching, man. Always coaching.
you got to love it.
My wife
hey Jim, he's got it.
She wants them in their corners, just watching TV on their iPad. I was like, get them out of the house. Go play football, basketball, do something. Beat up on each other. I mean, they're kids. I remember me and my brother, we'd fight every day, but there's nothing I wouldn't do for them. So
you gotta love Robert's like strike zone. See what you hit. Head up. Don't have the head down. he's gotten coached up already. Hey, well, Robert, man, you know how much Jim and I respect you. We wish you the best of luck in turning things around there and getting everybody on the same page. And we appreciate you taking some time and joining us here on the Huddle and Flow.
No, thank you guys so much. It was awesome. I really appreciate it, Jim, Steve. Awesome.
No, wishing you all the success, man. So you've earned it, and got a lot of people rooting for you, so we're pulling for you.
No, I appreciate you. It's we're gonna win here. There's no doubt in my mind we're gonna win here. So it's gonna be there's too many good people here for it not to.
Welcome back to the Huddle and Flow. Steve, just what an impressive guy. You know, Robert Saleh, one thing we always say about him, he's authentic, he brings in energy, he brings in intensity. And me, for one, I'm truly excited to see what he can do with this Jets organization because there's been so much dysfunction there over the last decade. I truly believe this is someone who has a plan to get it right. You know him really well. What are your thoughts?
Well, look, man, the first thing I want to do after seeing him is go to the gym and, do some shrugs, hit some freaking tricep extensions and, kind of get myself out of this COVID body that I've developed. But, the thing with Robert, I mean, again, I've talked to him for years, is just his evolution. I mean, Jim, you think about the fact, okay, he was a quality control coach with the Seahawks. And, we've heard Richard Sherman talk about how much he's grown because Sherman was with him in Seattle. He was with him in San Francisco. We know he's the biggest endorser of Robert Saleh. But Jim, think about it. In his second year with the 49ers, when they were going through this whole rebuild, people were like, is Saleh the guy? Because he was a first-time DC. And John Lynch and Kyle would tell us both, and even Jed York, he's the guy. We just have to get him some pieces. And, of course, they stacked that D-line and everything else, and Saleh was able to kind of do his thing as a head coach. I'm just really hoping that with the Jets, because we talked to start off the show, how, culture comes from the top. Will he be fully supported all the way down to have trickle-down opportunity for success? Because I think he's clearly the guy. We could talk about all these offensive gurus or whatnot. Robert Saleh is a leader, right? He is a guy, Jim, when you talk to him, he's thoughtful. He processes everything. He is unbelievably organized, not only in the way he talks, but the way he goes about his daily life. And you think about it, Jim, when you're about to have your 7th kid, you better be organized.
Well, I think what that reflects, Steve, is I always say the MVP of these coaches and players are the wives who have to take care of the home while the coaches and players are doing what they're doing. So to his wife, major props when you're handling 7 kids while, he's trying to break in as a first-year head coach. No question.
No question. Well, Jim, look, we're knocking on the door of the Super Bowl right here. We've got the Kansas City Chiefs against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A million storylines we can talk about. But is there anything that stands out to you that whether we should be looking for or just an underlying something that really adds a little hot sauce to everything we're dealing with the Super Bowl?
Yeah, for me, Steve, it's up front. I believe football games are one up front ultimately. And we know the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line is banged up. And when you look at Tampa Bay's defensive front, particularly that line, they've been bringing heat. So I want to see how Kansas City is going to handle that rush and the design of the defense that Todd Bowles is going to create. And I think that's where we're going to find out who's going to win this game, or I think that's where it will be won. If Kansas City can protect Mahomes, Kansas City has too many weapons. If Kansas City cannot protect Patrick Mahomes, then I can see Tampa Bay winning this thing.
Yeah, look, if Tampa can get some giveaways, some takeaways, the one thing they've done in their 3 postseason games, Jim, they've scored 41 points off of takeaways. Yeah. So this is, you give Tom Brady a short field or an extra possession, he is going to make you pay. For me, Jim, it is the coordinators. We have Eric Bieniemy. He was shut out of this coaching cycle again, going against Todd Bowles, the defensive coordinator, and Byron Leftwich is calling the plays. Yes, he's calling the plays for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We have 3 major coordinators of color, as we also know for the Buccaneers. Keith Armstrong's their special teams coordinator, and Harold Goodwin, another African-American, is the team's assistant head coach. But besides the color of their skin, it is their aptitude for success. The fact that they've designed all of the players we're going to see on the field to get to this point goes to show their hard work, their credibility, and the fact that you had Andy Reid and you've also had Bruce Arians pull them along and put them in positions to succeed. There's going to be no brighter showcase for these gentlemen to show that they are capable and they are worthy than this Super Bowl. And hopefully these owners, hopefully these owners can see something that they've been afraid to advance to this point.
Well, I'm not going to go long into this because it could take up the whole show or the entire week. But it was interesting. I was having a conversation with Tony Dungy the other night, and he said during his production meeting with Bruce Arians of the Bucks, what stuck out to Tony was how often Bruce said, Byron does this, Byron does this, Byron does this. He handles everything because Bruce said because of his health, Bruce simply can't handle all of those things. And yet, Byron Leftwich did not even get an interview for a head coaching job. I can only say that if Byron Leftwich were white, I have to believe he would have at least gotten an interview for a job, if not gotten a head job. Having said that, Steve, I mentioned Tony Dungy. I want to make sure that people know the Huddle and Flow is out there in podcast form as well, on Apple and Spotify and all the major platforms. And if you go back, you'll find some of the guests that we've had, ranging from Tony Dungy to Patrick Mahomes to Sean Payton to Chuck D to Jamel Hill and Kerry Champion to John Lynch. We can just go down the list. Soledad O'Brien, Lindsey Davis. I mean, we've got some stuff out there for you people. And coming up also, you can find our podcast with Nnamdi Asomugha, the former All-Pro cornerback with the Raiders, who's now got a tremendous film out there on Amazon Prime in Sylvie's Love. He's doing great things. So there's a lot of content out there for you guys to find from Huddle and Flow.
Way to preach it, Jim, because we touch all the bases, and no, we were not born on third base. All right, well, thank you for watching and listening to the Huddle Flow podcast presented by Intuit, the proud makers of TurboTax, QuickBooks, and Mint. I am Steve White for my guy Jim Trotter and Thomas Warren, the Howard U Mob. We are out.